So we're going to move next into the area of feature management and some of the things we've done in that space. And we want to start with just a simple addition we made in 1011 or 22R1 to help you present the features a little bit better. Because there are a lot of different types of features that exist within the product, but the problem is that gets to be a very lengthy list in there. So what we've done is we've started grouping some of those features together. Some of the first ones that you'll see in this release or in 22R1 and beyond are the rail, the site, the analysis, and the drainage and utility features being grouped. So you can simply expand those groups and then see all the features behind them. Another area that we worked on in 10.11 or 22R1 was also the ability to remap the features. Now, what do we mean by remapping? Well, you run into challenges sometimes when you're bringing in data from somewhere else. Maybe you're bringing this data forward from SS4 or SS10 and you need to map it into your current workspace. Maybe it's a project that you're working on with somebody else and they didn't use your workspace and you want to map it into your standards. Or maybe you've even changed the way you want your own standards to work and you just want to remap it. It doesn't really matter why, it gives you that ability to go in here and remap things. So what this feature definition remapper allows you to do is take data like I've got here, and if you look on the right, I've got a model in here. But the model doesn't have the colors and the materials, the things that I would expect to it. Even in my plan views, it's not quite what I expect for my standards. In this case, I've got a yellow center line, and mine's supposed to be red. So how does this remapper work? Well, it's really simple to use. We go to our backstage under our civil tools, run the remapper, and at its basics, once it's set up, you simply select the configuration file you want to use that has your setup in it and say remap. That's it. It's going to go in there and it's going to remap all these things that you've set up. So now we can see in our model, we've got proper colors and materials in here. In our 2D space, I've got my red center line or whatever other attributes may have needed to be adjusted. So let's understand a little bit more what's happening there, kind of what made up this file, this configuration. Well, at the top level, we tell it which categories we want to do remapping on. Terrains, linear geometries, point geometries, corridors, the points and the components within our templates within our corridors. And we can run this either on active files or we can run this against ITL or IRD files for your upgraded data coming from SS10. The other thing that's in here is a spreadsheet that we tie this to. And there's a tab in the spreadsheet for each of those categories. Within each of those tabs is where we define that granular data of what we want to happen. So in this case, we want to take this linear geometry feature when we find it and remap it to this one. So the blue columns are the required. They're the from and the to. The orange columns give us some optional things that you can put in there to qualify things a little more. Now, if we look at template remapping, template points here, I can see all the points that are in my old template, and I could have remapped those to new feature definitions. Like this edge of pavement could have been mapped to my new edge of pavement feature definition. But your data may not be perfectly clean, which is what we find with a lot of older data. So what you really might want to do is say, well, I actually want to go down to the individual points. Those might have all used edge of pavement as a feature before, but now I want to map those to 3 different features. So I'm going to map at the point level instead of at the feature level. So within your templates, both points and components, you can map feature to feature or you can map name to feature to get exactly what you want out of these. So that's how you set up those files to process. Now you can run that interactively like I was just showing there, and you could also run this in a batch process. So you can see the key in the yellow there, civil feature remapper, pass in the name of your configuration file. If you're remapping ITLs or IRD files, you can pass that name in as well. You can wrap all this up in a batch process tool, very similar to what Derek showed you with the export geometry tools. And you can process a whole series of files or entire projects very rapidly. Something else that we added in 10.11 or 22R1 is a better ability to create feature definitions. So if you've ever created them, you know they're kind of complex. They've got the definition itself, there's symbologies behind it, which leads you to element templates and levels and colors and styles. And understanding how all that fit together can be quite complicated. So we built a wizard to help you build that. Now, using this wizard, you can create new features or you can copy existing features. So let's take a look at how that works. So let's start by creating a brand new feature from scratch. So I'm in a file here that has nothing in it. You can see there's no feature definitions in it. I'm going to open up my feature definition wizard. Along the left side, you see the different categories or kind of the wizard that it's going to step you through. You can also browse through those with the backward and forward buttons in the lower right corner. Now, it already knows I'm creating an alignment feature because that's where I launched it from. I can tell it that I want to create a new feature. I could change it to a different feature type if I wanted to. And then I give it a name. So I'm going to call this one my feature definition. And I give it the path where I want that to be stored at. So we'll store that in our alignment road folder. And then we can move to the second step, which is our linear feature symbologies. Again, I can create new ones, which is what I'll do now. So because it's new, I'll give it a name and I'll give it a path of where that's going to locate. Then the bottom portion of that dialog is the individual components there. So for those linear features, what am I going to do for those element templates? I could create new ones, which I will do here, and create a new element template, tell it what folder to store that element template in, and then what settings to use. Now, I'm not creating levels, colors, styles, and weights here, but I can select my existing. I can also select my existing annotation groups or other element templates for the other properties that I have in here if I needed to define any of those. Let's go ahead and move on to our profile settings now. So same thing, I can create new ones or I could copy it. I'm going to create a new profile symbology. But now when I get to my element template, I don't really want to create a completely new one. What I want to do is use the same one that I used for my linear feature symbology. Now it doesn't really exist yet because I'm just defining that it's going to create. And that's what this transient type is about. So it's saying, go allow me to use the one that you're going to create and use the same one as there. And then in the last section, what I can define are kind of the general settings for my feature definition, like names and descriptions. In the case of an alignment feature definition, if I wanted to tie a corridor template to it or any item types I want to put on it, these sections are going to vary depending on the type of feature definition you're creating. When I hit accept, it'll go through and build all those so I can see them in my Explorer here. I can see the feature definition that was created, the feature symbology that was created behind that, and the profile feature symbology that was created. Likewise, if we go up and look at our element template, we can see that it created that element template up here and built all that for us. So I didn't have to go and manually create all of those different pieces. It created them for me. Now, just to go look at it real quick, if I look at my feature, you can see some of the settings that are in here. It is indeed pointing to the proper feature symbologies that I created and that template I put in there. Now, let's go through essentially the same process again, but this time I want to look at it from a copy standpoint instead of creating everything brand new. So I'm going to copy an existing feature, and I'm going to copy it straight out of my DGN library. So I'm going to browse out to my libraries. I'm going to go find one of my existing alignment features. I'll just use our Geom baseline that we deliver with the product. And I want to make a copy. I want to start from that feature definition and then make some adjustments to it. So I'll right click on it, launch the feature definition wizard. It opens up the wizard again. It knows that I'm in alignment feature, so the type's already set. It saw I was on an existing one, so it set it to copy mode automatically. It gave me an automatic name. I didn't like that. I'm going to change it to something else and tell it what folder I want to put that in for my feature definition. And then we can move on and define our feature symbologies. It's defaulted now to existing. And if you look at that dialog, it's completely filled out with everything that it's copied from that original Geom baseline. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to enable making a copy of that. And I'm going to create a new linear feature symbology. So we'll give that a name. We'll give it a folder where we want that to be stored. So I'm now creating a new feature symbology that's a direct copy of the old one. Again, I can see all that data has been pre-populated. I like most of this. I want to keep the majority. But what I do need to do is I need to change my color. So I'm going to copy my element template. I'm going to give it a new name of the element template that I want to use. And we'll tell it where to store that. And then we'll go make the change that we want. So the one change I'm going to make here is I'm going to change the color. Instead of being whatever the level's defined as, I want this to be color 7. All the rest of the settings are good for me. I'm just going to save all the rest of it. I'm going to keep using whatever Geom baseline user. Those were good for me. So you can very quickly and easily make copies of feature definitions and adjust your feature symbologies and your element templates through this using the feature definition wizard.